Hello and welcome, my name is JSB and this is my tech department. Today I'm looking at a console that's a bit down on its luck, but it's a console I have fond memories of. You see, back in 2000, if you had a home console, chances are it was the Sony PlayStation. Sony had swept into the market surprisingly in 1997 and basically saw off all the competition, with the exception of Nintendo, who, kept going with the N64. But come 2000, who was there to challenge Sony for dominance? Well, the answer came from an unexpected source. Microsoft. Yes, the company behind Windows Me. Sorry for this flashback. Ugh. And Windows XP decided they were going to have their own bash at making a console. Announced in 2000 and released in November 2001, the Xbox was a big, chunky console, and it set out to do exactly that and challenge Sony. And challenge it did. By the end of its life, it had sold over 15 million.
Of course, when I said 15 million, I meant 24 million. They're very similar numbers, you know. Idiot.
Units, and that's not bad for a console that only lasted 4 years. But this particular console, well, it's not in great shape. I bought it for just €2. It's one of those again. And today we're going to have a look and see if we can get it working. So come on, los geht's.
Announced in 2000 and arriving in North America in late 2001 with a thud, the Xbox was a big boy. Built around PC hardware, it featured a custom-made 733MHz Pentium 3 CPU, 64MB of memory, a 10GB hard drive, and graphics by NVIDIA's GeForce 3. The Xbox was spoiling for a fight. Like the PS2, it offered DVD playback, though you had to purchase a separate remote and receiver, which was a bit of a letdown. Our Xbox is an early model and I bought it for just €2 and it came as is, with no controllers or cables. Fortunately, I have a few here, though my controllers need a little refurb themselves, maybe for the next video. For now, let's plug in and see if it powers up. Amazingly, it does actually start up, and we even have a free game in the drive, Terminator. Nice. Well, that's about as far as we get though. Popping in a game disc shows that the drive is unable to read it. This is common with old Xboxes, as lasers in the drives wear out over time. We may be able to adjust things to squeeze more power out of it, but it's a long shot. I quickly throw in an audio disc off camera just to confirm the drive doesn't read it, and sure enough, it doesn't. It's time to disassemble and see what's what. To get inside the Xbox, you'll need to undo 6 long Torx screws. 4 are hidden under the feet and 2 are hidden under various labels that once removed let you know that the machine has been worked on. Surprisingly, this Xbox still has its labels intact. I'm the first one in here for a change. Nice. It can be a little tricky to get underneath the feet, as the glue can be quite sticky. In this case, I just use a little pry bar and expose the screw. Then we can get the screwdriver in and undo it. For the screws hidden under the labels, I'm not going to try and peel them back as they're designed really not to come off well. Instead, I'm just going to pierce the top of them and remove the screws that way. And let's keep the same procedure for this one as well. With the screws removed, we can flip the Xbox over and remove the top cover, and wow, that is one dusty interior. Let's get that hard drive and DVD out so we can take a look at the motherboard. Dust is everywhere inside this case, and take a look at it. I mean, that can't be good. Either way, we have to get the hard drive out first before we can tackle the DVD drive, and so let's get started. There are a few screws we have to take out from inside the case. These are all fairly small and can be quite tricky to remove actually. like this one that's down the side of the hard drive and DVD drive. It's tricky to get to, and you really need a screwdriver with a magnetic tip to get that out of there properly. Sadly, my magnetic tip has let me down and the screw is stuck inside. Never mind though, because the drive is now free to lift away and we'll collect it afterwards. Next up, we have to disconnect the hard drive's IDE cable and the power supply cable before it will all lift out properly. Be advised, this can be in there a little tight, and the power supply cable doubly so. In fact, as you'll see, I actually try everything to get this power supply cable out, but it's in there really rather tight and there's not a lot of room to maneuver. Instead, I try and loosen up the cable, all to no avail, and eventually it's just easier to lift the whole caddy out and flip it over and attempt to get it a little later. It's a similar process for the DVD drive. You simply have to unplug the plugs at the back, and I'm happy to say this was a little bit easier, and then just lift the drive out, and that will reveal the whole motherboard. So let's stop and take a look at the board, and oh good lord, that is filthy. I have never seen a layer of dust so thick on a motherboard in my life. That is atrocious. Oh god, it's awful. I guess I'm gonna have to be on cleaning duty later. Let's start with the DVD drive though. We'll need to open the case to get at the drive sled and laser, and this is easy, just 4 screws, with the last one hidden under a warranty sticker. Again, this is unbroken. Yay! Lifting the case off and more dust is apparent. Could this be the cause of our disk reading issues? Well, a good clean isn't going to harm things, that's for sure. There's dirt and dust everywhere. For the laser, I'm going to apply the gentlest amount of pressure with a little IPA on a cloth to clean the lens. Cleaning the drive spindle is also a little tricky because it is textured, but fortunately those little bits of dirt and grime come off with a damp cloth filled with IPA. For the drive rails, I'm going to use some silicone oil. Normally I'd use something like white lithium grease. Unfortunately, I didn't have any to hand, so I relied on the silicone oil anyway. It's a good substitute and will make sure that none of the rubber parts inside are damaged. Now let's turn our attention to the motherboard. Now, unlike modern computers where there is a battery backup clock, the Xbox didn't have one. Instead, it relied on a supercapacitor. And if there's something super these capacitors are good at, it's leaking. And surprise, surprise, the one on this Xbox has leaked. So I'm going to have to change that as well. In the meantime though, I have to find a way of getting this motherboard out, and it is held in with an inordinate amount of screws. I don't know what Microsoft were thinking. Maybe they thought the board was going to run off if it wasn't screwed down by the 10 or so screws I swear I had to take out. Either way, it's in there tight. Now, since I'm taking the motherboard out, I also take my time to remove the power supply carefully and set that aside, as that's going to need cleaning as well later. With the board out, we can take a good look at the state of it, and wow, it is filthy. But what about that clock capacitor? Yep, sure enough, it's leaked. You can see the little reddy orangey color underneath there that is indicative of capacitor leakage. Fortunately, taking it out is fairly simple. With the capacitor taken out, let's take a look at it and see. Oh, yeah, it's dead. It's very dead. But if this is what the capacitor looks like, how does the board look? Well, obviously there's damage. Ugh. But fortunately, we should be able to clean this up with a little cotton bud and some IPA. And hopefully that's the last of the damage on the board. Now, you don't have to replace the clock capacitor if you don't want to. I did. And a word about these caps too. Shopping for them, I found places on eBay and other online shops that would sell them between 4 and 7 euros. This is way too high. I bought mine from Conrad here in Austria for just 50 cents. Shop around at electronics places and don't get ripped off. Before I refit the cap, let's give the board a damn good cleaning so that everything is nice and neat before we add that capacitor.
Knew it from the start, you had problems with me and the things I could be, I just wish I had seen.
Replacing the cap is as simple as making sure you've got the polarity right as you add it to the board, then 2 little blobs of solder and you're done. Our final job before everything goes back in the case is to actually take the PSU out and the fan, give them a good clean, and then we can reassemble everything. As the fan comes away, you can really see the amount of dust and grime that's built up in this machine. It's literally covering that intake. Ew. The last thing I have to do is clean the power supply, and I'm being very, very careful here. Those 2 big capacitors can hold a lot of charge, and if you touch the back of the board, it's very easy for them to give you a very, very, very nasty shock. So be careful. Now, as it happens, the machine hasn't been powered up for some time, so those capacitors are completely discharged, but be careful if you're working on your power supply. Now that everything's clean, it's time to put it all back together, and hopefully this machine is going to power up and work perfectly, because that would be fantastic if all this machine needed was just a little bit of cleaning and 1 new clock capacitor. With the case now secured, it's time to do one last thing, and that's give it a good clean. I've got some window cleaner and I'm just going to clean up the plastics, and they start to come up and look wonderful. Someone had obviously looked after this machine, at least on the outside. And now for the moment of truth. The power's on, there's a disc in the drive. What's going to happen? We wait and wait and wait, and then and you can see my reflection in the glass. Yes, Xbox One, look, it's picked up the thing, and yes, it's loading Sudeki, and I couldn't be happier. Wonderful. So this Xbox just needed a 50-cent cap and a severe clean. From an abandoned console sold for scrap to a fully working machine, what's not to love? The Xbox has cleaned up well, though I may return to the machine at some point and give her a full recap and replace the thermal paste. For now though, I'm going to enjoy some of the classic Xbox games, including Sudeki.
Well, there we have it. The Xbox is back together and it's looking great. And I really am excited to get back to playing great games like Sudeki. I have to, it's unfinished business, okay? Don't look at me like that. I'm not saying any more about it. I'm also looking forward to playing other games like Halo, because I never got to play that the first time round. In fact, there are a lot of games I didn't play first time round. Might be some videos in there. If you'd like me to do some videos on Jess plays video games she's never played before, let me know. The other thing I have to do is look at those controllers, but I think I may leave those for the next installment. You know, when I come back and maybe do a full recap. Plus, that's not the only Xbox in the tech department. In the meantime, I really hope you enjoyed this video. I enjoyed making it, and I hope you have a great day. So please remember, with old tech, replay, rediscover, and reconnect, and I'll see you next time.